Hey, it's your boy Hardcore Smitty, man, and this is chapter 2, White Trash Legend, so let's get right to it. Chapter 2. My guidance counselors and teachers, probation officers, and shrinks used to say I was prison bound or dead by 20. They told me I wouldn't be able to get a job also if I didn't do as they said. It was always, do what I say, not what I do. Believe me, these authority figures were shady folks of low moral character. 190 proof. Everclear grain alcohol is highly flammable and, if consumed in large quantities, very likely to result in devious behavior. In the spring of 1985, before the middle school dance, your faithful narrator and some fellow delinquents decided to do some damage to a bottle of the stuff. I am in full-on mayhem mode by the time we finished that bottle. My heroes of the day were out of control rock musicians. I would read about Ozzy Osbourne getting drunk and arrested for pissing on the Alamo in San Antonio while wearing his wife's green dress and find myself impressed. I love getting drunk and raising hell. I enjoyed introducing mayhem into the sterile system of rules and conformity. This same year, I would discover bands like Black Flag, Suicidal Tendencies, and Venom. People were crying out that these bands were destroying the moral fabric of my generation. These extreme forms of rock and roll were pissing off the powers that be. The FBI was investigating them, and committees were formed to censor them. Thrash metal, punk, and hardcore played the soundtrack to my life. My date for the dance was one of the hottest girls at school. She had an Irish name and just enough freckles to be attractive. I planned on having my way with her after the dance. That was my usual goal, to get drunk, get lucky, and should I also add get in a fight, though I didn't plan for that, but it happened often enough. As things would turn out, I wouldn't be that lucky. I did, however, get to make out with her a little during a couple of the slow dances. After making out on the dance floor, I was feeling great and should have been content. After all, I got a killer buzz going on. I just made out with a super hot girl. However, the thing inside me that wanted to cause trouble was too strong to deny, so the mayhem began as I roamed the gymnasium, fucking with everything and everyone the entire time. I see some girls have left their purses on the bleachers. I start going through them and pull out maxi pads and tampons, and I throw them at other kids. This girl, Roxanne, tells the English teacher that doesn't like me very much that I'm going into the girls' purses and throwing feminine hygiene products at people. Miss Mushbottom, the English teacher, and the junior deputy, Roxanne, approached me. Roxanne is smirking because she got me in trouble. Miss Mushbottom says, "Come with me, young man." I tell the teacher I'm not going anywhere. Then I proceed to tell the girl that was snitching on me she was a liar and a cunt. Well, I didn't have to go with the teacher to see the principal. He came to us. Now, this principal, let's call him Mr. Smooth, because I never saw him lose his cool. He was always composed and fair. I acted up a lot in school and was in his office regularly. I gave most of his teachers a hard time and was disrespectful towards them. Not him, though. I tried my best to be respectful towards him because I did indeed respect him. We went out into the hall, the principal, the teacher, and the girl that was snitching on me. He asked me what happened, and the girl said he was going through the girls' purses. I got mad and told the girl to go fuck herself. Mr. Smooth told me to calm down, and it was apparent I was drunk and smelled like a still. He made me turn my pockets out, and I forgot I had left the house. When I left the house, I took some of my mom's whiskey, and I couldn't find anything to put it in. Then I saw a bottle with some kind of water pill in it. I grabbed the baggie and put the pills in the baggie and the booze in the pill bottle. I planned to sneak the booze into the dance and drink it, and then put the pill back into the bottle and take it home. I drank the booze but lost the bottle. However, when I turned on my pockets, the pills were still there. This caused concern. They thought it was drugs. I'm still a little fuzzy on the details at this point, but they get the money I took, and I do remember being super pissed at the girl that told on me and calling her names, probably threatening to kill her. The teachers left, and when she returned, she said the police were on their way. Mr. Smooth was not happy. He said he was just going to call my mother to pick me up and deal with this on Monday. I went apeshit, calling the teacher a fucking whore and the girl that snitched on me a rancid slophole rat. I decided to take off before the cops came. So I ran up to the top floor, into the bathroom, and out the window, which I broke getting out of, only to escape the school straight into police custody. Mr. Smooth, the good guy that he truly was, told the police not to arrest me, and that he would deal with it as a school issue. So the police, they couldn't contact my mom and my stepdad Jim because they had gone out for the evening. They were able to reach my grandmother, however, and took me to her house and released me into her custody. I got into my drunken head that I would run away to California where I could become a rock star and party all the time. I was 14 and I had a guitar that I didn't know how to play anything on other than the opening riff to Smoke on the Water. I asked my grandmother for a glass of water and I took off out the front door when she went to get it. I ran through alleys and paths and ended up on a dark street. There was a car parked in a driveway at the end of the street. It was an AMC Gremlin, and I got in there, and there weren't any keys in the ignition. I forgot to mention, I don't know how to drive yet, and this car has a manual transmission. I decided to turn the ignition without any key, and to my amazement, the fucker starts. I grab the gear shift and get it into reverse, and I smash into the garage. I tried again to get it to go forward, and I smashed into the house. The next thing I know, I was in a chokehold. The owner had come out to keep me from stealing his car and smashing up his property. Other men from the neighborhood arrived to help the car owner restrain me. Ever since I can remember, I couldn't stand to be restrained and would fight like a caged animal. I took a few lumps that night resisting them. That was the last I remember. But from what my mother tells me, I was like a caged animal that night and was none too happy about being caged. She didn't recognize the lunatic they had in their holding cell at the police station as her son. My severe aversion to being restrained and confined made me completely insane that night. I woke up in a small space made of concrete blocks with barred windows without my shoes. I walked to the door and it was locked. Panic began to set in until I saw a kid I know walk past my window and wave. I put it together that I was in juvie hall, and I think that I had stolen a car. A staff member opens my door and tells me to put my shoes on, which are on the floor outside of my cell. I'm then instructed to get in line for breakfast, which I do silently. I'm doing my best to take in my surroundings, to staff, the other kids, where the doors are, everything I can. I have no idea what to expect other than what I've seen on TV, so I decide to keep my mouth shut and my eyes and ears open. I approach the chow line and the older woman working asks if I'm new. I nod yes. She tells me I can have whatever I want, but if I take it, I have to eat it. So I don't take it if I don't plan on eating it. Again, I nod that I understand and either shake my head yes or no as she slops oatmeal out of a steamer pan onto my tray. I'm not that hungry, so other than the oatmeal, I get some toast and coffee and then follow the guy in front of me to the table. At the table, I'm the object of curiosity, being I'm the new guy. When asked what brought me here and there, I answer, I think I stole a car. That gets laughs all around. It is apparent I'm very hungover and a little beat up. The guys at the table introduce themselves, and I do likewise. I asked about smoking, and they let me know if my mom says I'm allowed to smoke, then I can. But the staff holds them and only passes them out during our time in the day room. I then asked about calling my mom, and they said I would have to ask the staff. I see a kid on the other side of the chow hall keep shooting glances at me. I don't recognize him, and I put it out of my mind because I'm called by one of the staff members. I follow the staff member, a very large black dude with jerry curl and a sleeveless shirt and leather fingerless gloves. I found out later most of the monitors like him were ex-cons. This guy was an intimidating figure, as were most of his cohorts. I followed him into the office. He has me shut the door and take a seat. I do as he instructs, with as little talk as possible. I'm trying not to let the fear I'm feeling show in my actions. I make a concentrated effort not to come across cocky. I know that I will only provoke him into humbling me. I don't want him to think I'm a pussy either, because that leaves the door open to be made sport of. He asks me a bunch of normal routine questions. When he is done with that, he gives me his rundown. He says they usually tune up the new guys and knock off the chip they're carrying on their shoulders to show us who's in charge. He said he didn't feel like it was going to be necessary in my case. He stares into my eyes for about 10 seconds and says, I'm right, ain't I? I say, I'm not going to be a cause of trouble to you. He nods and then begins breaking down the rules to me. I was to follow all orders given by the monitors and all staff in general without question immediately. There was no fighting in the day room or chow or anywhere inside. If I wanted to fight, they would take us outside to the yard and we could fight there. Then the issue we were fighting about would no longer be an issue. We could smoke if we had parental permission. We had to shower daily and take care of our hygiene. He said, I ain't having no dirty, stinking, nasty-ass motherfuckers up in here, you dig? I take some scabies and lice home with me, y'all motherfuckers be sorry. I took it that he had taken some of these vermin home with him at one time and infected his family. And with, And he said me and my fellow inmates had permission to deal with the dirty kids. In institutions, a person who doesn't concern themselves with personal hygiene is called a Viking. My cell was to be kept spotless, and it was to be cleaned each morning after breakfast. I was to attend school while I was there if I hadn't already dropped out. Once he gave me the rundown, he called my mother. I was extremely nervous, hoping she wouldn't be crying. She answered and sounded okay. He told her who he was and that he had me with him, and she could come visit me today if she wanted. He asked her if I was allowed to smoke, and she said yes, I was allowed. He told her she could bring me cigarettes, clothes, hygiene items. He proceeded to give her the rundown of the visiting rules, the hours she could visit, and for how long. After going through the particulars of everything, he went on to tell her that I was doing well, and he hadn't had any issues with me, and he did not foresee any. Then I was allowed to talk to her. I took every bit of my strength not to break down into tears. I told my mother I was sorry and that I was doing well. I was doing, and I wanted to know what the rest of the family was. They were all fine, she said, so and also not to worry, but to take care of myself. Having finished up the intake, I was shown to the supply closet to get the things I needed to clean my cell. After cleaning my cell, I was directed to take a shower. This caused some anxiety from watching movies about prison. I figured if someone was going to try and rape me, it would be in the shower. Being I was in the monitor's office for intake, I was behind schedule and the showers were empty. My morning requirements being met, I could go to the day room for one of the recreational periods. Walking into the day room, all eyes were on the new fish. I could see some whispering going on. I saw the guy that I knew from the streets and shook hands with him, and he told me he was caught with a pound of weed, which in reality is more like an eighth of an ounce. People incarcerated tend to exaggerate, and this fucker had no shortage of grandiose tales. He wasn't a bad guy, he was just full of shit, but most of his stories were entertaining. I didn't know him well, he was a friend of a guy I knew, but he was the only guy in there that I knew at all, and I soon drifted away from him. I didn't see myself fitting in with him or the guys I noticed he hung out with. I perceived those dudes as lames, and he was with all his bullshit, was the leader of that little group. I got a cigarette from him and gravitated towards the other guys that I had breakfast with. I'm taking in my whole surroundings. The place wasn't like San Quentin or the prison I saw on TV. For instance, there were no bars except on the windows, but it was more like mesh than typical prison bars you would think of. I did get the impression that it was a secure place that you couldn't just leave when you wanted. It was cold, stark place with little or no decorum. It smelled of fear and disinfectant. It gave one a feeling of hopelessness. The young kid looked to be about 12 years old. The youngest kid looked to be about 12 years old. And the oldest ones like grown men, so they must have been 16 or 17. I was 14, about to be 15 in a month or so. I was a long-haired kid who had already had some tattoos, so I looked 16 or 17. I would say the average age of the kids there was 16. There were about 30 of the kids there, mostly white and black, but there was one Hispanic kid and one Asian kid. The Hispanic kid was in the group of guys I ate breakfast with. The other three were white. I noticed that I wasn't scared. The place wasn't full of monsters like I was taught in school. Most of the kids were just like me, bored young people without much of an outlet for the angst they felt. I was led to believe that lockups were full of savages and red-eyed maniacs the size of giants. I wasn't a small kid at 14. I was probably 5'10", 160 pounds. I was very active and in perfect shape. I was no badass, but I could certainly hold my own in a physical altercation. I always felt fear when it came to physical violence, except when I was drunk. Despite that fear, I learned I wasn't a coward. If things came to violence, I would fight even if I thought I might lose the fight. In a lot of fights I thought I would lose, I won because the fear I felt gave me the strength that I needed. I learned while being locked up that the loudest guys, the ones that talked the most shit and boasted about all the shit they were capable of, were the ones that I should fear the least. It was the quiet, humble guys that were the most dangerous ones. The guys I ate breakfast with turned out to be cool kids. I hit it off with them immediately. Each one gave me the story that brought them in. The Chicano kid had the heaviest charge. He shot his mom's boyfriend in the foot. He was tired of his mom getting smacked around, so he took the guy's gun and then put a bullet in the bastard's foot. He told him the next time he put his hands on his mom, it wouldn't be his foot. He was being sent to the youth detention center. The place we were in was only a county holding facility. He and I were both first-timers in the system. The other fellas I found myself hanging out with had all done time before, and were older than us. The Mexican kid, Ralphie, he had just turned 14. The other guys were Callie, Roger, and Vince. Callie's real name was James, but since he was from California, everyone called him Callie. He had done time in the California Youth Authority and had crazy stories about the gangs and all the shit that went down in those places. He left California without permission from his probation officer to be with a girl who lived in Pennsylvania. When she caught him cheating on her, she turned him in. He was waiting to be either extradited or released. He was almost 18 and done with probation, so he didn't have much time left. The other guys, Roger and Vince, were co-defendants. They were in for stealing a car like I was. That was their thing, boosting cars. They would boost cars and sell them to the chop shops in Pittsburgh. They had fallen asleep in the car at a convenience store waiting for the chop shop to open. Then they were to be sent to the maximum detention center for older juvenile offenders that could keep them until they were 21. It was their third offense stealing cars. These guys loved cars and knew everything about them. They talked about becoming certified auto mechanics while they were doing their time. The judge made it a part of their sentencing order to get their GED and learn a trade. I see the kid who was stealing glances at me during breakfast. He was playing cards with 3 other kids. I asked my new acquaintance if any of them knew him. I found out his name was DJ Bad. Everyone just referred to him, though, as Bad Money. He likes borrowing shit, but doesn't like paying it back. When it comes time to pay for what he borrowed, he gives them a bullshit story about why he can't pay it back at the moment. And if it is someone he fears will beat his ass, he will borrow what he owes off a new guy to pay his debt. If the person he borrowed from is weak, he straight up tells them they're beat and he ain't paying back shit. So he seems like he's a real dirtbag. They give me the rundown on the group of guys in there, which ones are thorough, meaning they are good people. Others were lames or scumbags, like Bad Money DJ, and there were others worse than lames or scumbags. Those were the diddlers, child molesters, in other words. The rapists, sex offenders were looked down on, and for good reason. They were often victimized and easy prey. Most of the monitors overlooked the rough treatment of them. Often enough, it was the monitors that were dishing out the rough treatment. There was one rapist there that didn't get picked on. He went by rope chain or just rope. He looked a lot older than the teenager he was. The fella said he was super strong and just as dumb. He is a bully and a booty bandit, which is one that preys on others he feels are weaker than he is and anally rapes them. The poor bastard that is raped inside of a prison environment is forever considered a punk. Not the kind of punk that sports a mohawk and listens to fast, loud rock and roll. In prison, a punk is the worst thing there is. It means you are a bitch. No longer are you considered a man. It is often said there is always a chance it could happen to anyone, but if they are still alive by morning, when they can tell everyone you liked it. Meaning if you did go kill the fucker as soon as you got free, then you are truly a punk. This fucker rope chain was bad news. There are some guys that are vile rapists, and some are rats, but are very dangerous, so they don't care what they do, they just do what they want. What the fuck kind of name is rope chain anyway? I see Bad Money is kissing his ass and it makes me sick. They are both picking on a weak little black kid who is obviously slow. I guess he is also gay as well, and this is where they aim their abuse. Vince shakes his head and says, "Fucking hamster, picking on a retard for being queer. Pretty fucking ironic because that spook loves some man ass." "Yeah," Ralph chimed in. "Bitch ass vato, DJ swinging on that Mayate's dick." These guys decided it was time to get away from all this shit, and we asked if we can go to the yard. The monitor gathers up the other kids that want to go out, and we lead out to the patch of ground that is the yard. There's a full-size basketball court and a patch of concrete to play handball against the building. Ralphie and Kelly immediately hit the handball court. Roger and Vince get a few cigarettes each off the monitor, and they give me a couple, and we sit and smoke and watch the other guys play handball. They let me know Callie was a real smart dude, not just street smart, but book smart too. He read all the time, and not penthouse letters and other smut, but real books, big fuckers too. They said he wasn't one of those smartasses that had to let you know they were smarter than you. He would explain things and encourage his friends to read as well. Roger and Vince both had come from fucked up families. They told me that they often bought heroin with the money from the cars they boosted. I never met anyone who shot up drugs before. From the image society portrayed, and from what I learned in school, I expected heroin users to be complete deviants. These guys were cool dudes. Now, not what I expected at all. Seemed I didn't know as much about the world as I thought I did. Jails and prisons have a whole different language and meaning for words used in society. I picked up on it pretty quick because I could pick up from the context it was used in what it meant, or close enough. When the fellows would slide in some words on me I didn't figure out, I would just smirk and ask what the fuck that meant. They would laugh and say how I better find out. I took the slight ribbon in stride and they would tell me, if you took yourself too seriously, you made yourself a target, to be clowned on or bidded on. You were the bid, meaning you were the way for people to enjoy themselves at your expense. Your bid was your time inside. If it was said, dude knows how to bid, it meant the guy knew how to do time. Roger and Vince were schooling me on how to hotwire a car. They also told me it was a good idea to learn how to drive first. I learned which cars were the easiest to hotwire and which ones to avoid. I'm called by the monitor, ending my criminal education for the day. My mother was here for our visit. I'm taken back to the cafeteria, and the monitor says, I'll be back in an hour for you. I nod and sit down, and he leaves us alone. As soon as he leaves, my mom starts crying and hugs me. I break too, and my tears fall. I hate hurting my mom, and I know this is killing her, having her son caged. I do my best to assure her I'm okay and not in any danger. She tells me she is talking to the juvenile public defender, and he thinks I'll be released to her at my court hearing. Since I'm still in school, this is my first serious incident. I should go home. However, it is up to the judge. So my mom tells me to stay out of trouble while I'm locked up and to be polite to the judge. I'm making the best of it while I'm locked up. I got turned on to hardcore punk by Cali. I always thought punk was flock of seagulls and I'll stop the world and melt with you type keyboard-laden crap. I was confusing punk with new wave. Punk was raw and aggressive, especially hardcore, which was heavier than most metal. Difference hardcore was minus the hair and the image. It was raw, street-level stuff. During this era, metal bands were getting into hardcore and losing the songs about dragons and wizards or cars and pussy. Things were exciting in music, at least the music that the radio and MTV wouldn't put into rotation. So I listened to Suicidal Tendencies, Black Flag, Agnostic Front, and uncovered stuff that 10 years prior had influenced those bands, like Misfits, Bad Brains. Metallica and Slayer were shaking things up in metal with the assault of speed and aggression. No longer would I be wearing shirts of glam bands like Dokken. I found my niche, and I wanted to experience slam dancing. Bon Jovi and Poison, those bands were posers. I was down with the real stuff that amused with shock value and educated me with 3 chords and screaming vocals. While I was enjoying getting lost in all the music I discovered, Rope and Bad Money were hating on me. I guess I came across as arrogant and entitled. Those things I never felt. If anything, I was self-conscious and felt insecure a lot. The caveman Rope made himself clear when he forced a kid to suck his cock in the shower in front of everyone. He looked at me and said, "You next, white boy." I don't remember if I said anything. I must have. I do know my face had to have shown disgust. Rope, enraged, comes at me, and luckily he loses his footing just before he gets to me and slips. As he is slipping, I hit him with everything I had, and I keep hitting him. Kids in the shower encouraging us to kill each other. As I'm hitting Rope, it doesn't seem to be making any difference. He ends up kicking my ankle, and I fall. However, I ignore the pain. I manage to lock my hands around his neck. Now I see fear in his eyes. I just squeeze with all I have, and I just go blank. I'm knocked in the head by a monitor. The next thing I remember, I'm in the hall. The monitor that hit me told me I wouldn't listen. He tried to get me to stop, but I kept on choking Rope and would have killed him. The staff was drawn by the noise of the shower. One of the head honchos there came and asked what had happened. I said nothing. He said it didn't look like anything and grabbed my shoulders and started shaking me. The monitor whispered in his ears. He looked at me once more, smiled, and left. I was told to go lock in my cell. I did as I was told. The adrenaline was wearing off, and I was beginning to worry about court and Rope taking a shot when I wasn't looking. Another thing came to my mind was pride, and not balking when I had to get violent. I always had a problem forcing myself to be violent. I was glad to know I could get there when I needed to. Every man wants to be able to protect himself and the people he cares about. I don't care where they are from, it is ingrained in us. I do not like violence, but I know it as its uses. Seeing the staff, at least most of them, didn't care for Rope, chained that much, and they were not displeased at him taking a beating for once. The guard that hit me said he didn't want me to face a murder charge for that dirtbag. He was placed in segregation only for 2 days before he was transferred to the state juvie joint. I guess he had wanted to get me before he left, and was still the biggest fish in the tank. I was let out of my cell the day he left. I got praise and respect for how I handled myself. I was worried about the judge, but it was never mentioned. I was released into my mother's custody, and my case bound over for trial. My lawyer said we could plea bargain to a consent decree, and I would get probation. I would have to get a drug and alcohol evaluation also. I was so happy to get released. It was like Christmas and my birthday all wrapped up into one day. My family was excited, and my younger brother was really happy to see me. I don't think my little sister really knew what happened. Everyone expected me to have learned my lesson, and I would now toe the line. The thing is, I was never going to be scared of being locked up now that I've experienced it. Hell, I felt I fit in better there than I did at school or in sports. It was great being free. I called all the girls I had in my phone book, and I got lucky and spent a Friday night with one while she was babysitting her older sister's kid. She asked about lockup, and I told her it was nothing. Then I smiled at her and I said, but I never want to go back. I must admit, as stupid as it sounds, I used that experience as a badge of honor. Not many kids I knew had been locked up, but I had, and I knew the lingo. I started hanging out with older guys, 18 and 19. By the time I was 15, I was getting served in bars. I wasn't into drugs yet. Really just a little weed, dropped acid here and there. I didn't stop getting in trouble. I was busted for underage drinking a bunch of times, as well as disorderly conduct. We ended up moving right before school started, and I would begin high school in a new town. I had done this many times before, moved around a lot, and so I was used to it. The girls would love the new kid and would piss off the boys, and I would get into some fights. No big deal. I was looking forward to the girls, and to tell you the truth, about the fights as well. Alright, that's it for chapter 2, and we are going to do a little thing here. It's going to be called Life After Legend, and we will be right back with that. Alright, Degenerate Nation.